brain is a pattern-seeking device.
Yeah.
So if we can create a pattern by hooking onto something of interest,
Hmm.
that's what I try to do each time. So very interactive. My class is a little noisy at times, and then there's a listening time.
Hello, and welcome to the Teacher's Lounge. Today, I'm truly honored to welcome a very special guest, someone who has shaped not only classrooms across the United States, but also my own academic journey. Dr. Sondra LoRe, who has been teaching for more than 30 years. She's worked with learners of every age, starting with little ones in elementary schools, all the way to undergraduates, graduate students, and even future teachers. Currently, she serves as a program evaluator for nearly 20 grant and foundation funded projects across the US, while also teaching as an adjunct professor. Her courses span quantitative literacy at the undergraduate level and science methods for elementary teachers at the graduate level. On a personal note, I'm especially delighted to have her with us today because Dr. LoRe was my professor of qualitative research during my PhD journey, and she also served on my dissertation committee. Dr. LoRe, it's such an honor to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Same
This is
here.
wonderful.
You're great. So now that we've had a chance to introduce you, let's dive into our first segment, what I call the quick five. So these are five exploratory questions where we explore the inspirations, challenges, your experiences, and teaching wisdom that have shaped your journey. And at the same time, learn from you. So the first question for you is, you have spent so many years working in qualitative research and program evaluation. So, what first inspired you to choose this path, and how has it shaped who you are today, both as a professor and a senior program evaluator?
Okay, so I think I became interested in program evaluation a little bit by accident. So my first career was I studied economics. I didn't want to be a teacher at first because everyone in my family was a teacher. So I wanted to be the one different person. So I studied economics as an undergrad, and my first jobs out of college were with a large bank. And immediately they said, "Would you like to do some training courses?" And then I worked at Harvard Business School for a little while, and that was my first foray, I guess, into evaluation. I did training, again, being kind of pulled into teaching, and I collected the volume of publications. I work for Harvard Business School Publishing. And then I kind of, after a couple of years of that, I said, you know what? I think I really love this teaching and training. I really want to be a teacher. So when I went back and got my master's in curriculum instruction, in my first teaching appointment, after I'd been there about a year, my principal said, "Oh, we have an evaluation program and we need teacher evaluators. Would you like to go and be trained?" So I said, yes. I was a new teacher. He was my principal. I can't say no. So I went and I learned to be an educator evaluator, but it wasn't really program evaluation. It was doing observation, so qualitative research. They would call me up and send me to a school or invite me to observe the teachers in our building and write that up and send it to the state education department for tenure and promotion. So that's when I first became exposed to evaluation and qualitative research. And then when I became a principal, I kept thinking, how are we making decisions? It seems somewhat random. How can we gather evidence that's meaningful to help our students? And that's when I first became interested in program evaluation. And that's when I entered the PhD program in program evaluation. And because my background is in teaching, qualitative research was interesting to me because so much of what we do as classroom teachers is observe and talk to our students, right? How do we capture that information
Yeah.
so that it's meaningful for change?
I was just thinking about like how has this experience shaped you as a professor and a program evaluator? What do you feel?
Yes.
What kind of an impact has it had on you, as a program evaluator?
Yeah. Well, now that we evaluate these programs all across the United States, um, it I'm oftentimes working with faculty, and they're all tend to be around the idea of how can we be effective educators. And so my background in teaching is helpful in that regard, but what I've learned about program evaluation and assessment has helped me be able to leverage the evidence that we collect for
Mhm.
them to make changes. It's very hard to make changes
Mm.
without evidence
Yes.
when there's money tied to it.
Mm.
I want to capture the student perspective, right? What do students need? What do teachers value? What's important for teachers to be, what do they need to be successful? And bundle that in a way that I can tell the story of here's what they need. And if you help us with money, funding, or supports, then we can be more effective. We can reach more learners. But yeah, that's where evaluation comes in for me.
Great. Such a wonderful answer. Now, as such, as educators, I'm sure even you will agree, we often experience those aha moments, but sometimes we also face the completely unexpected. So, can you share a moment from your teaching or evaluation practice that truly surprised you and how it changed the way you look at higher education?
The biggest aha moment for me was when I joined my PhD program in 2014. I, had spent 18 years teaching or and being a school principal.
Mhm.
And I came to the college, in my 40s, go into a PhD program. And I had this aha moment where I was like, wait a minute, my professors have maybe never studied teaching. Like, because my background, was very intentional about how to teaching methods, teaching pedagogy, brain compatible teaching and learning techniques, right? That was what I studied when I left, economic world to the teaching world in my master's program. We studied how to teach. And so when I got to my PhD program, besides feeling maybe like I was older than most of the students in my classes, and I had a little bit of imposter syndrome and a little bit of fear, like, why did I leave my school to do this? What was I thinking? And then, and I know you understand, like, why did I have this crazy idea in my 40s? I was like, whoa, I'm sitting in classes where the professor is extremely knowledgeable in their field of study, whatever that happens to be, right? But they may never have had a teaching methods course. So they're teaching primarily the way that they learned or the way that they practiced as a graduate student. Um, but, or maybe they had a bad experience as a graduate student and they want to teach differently. I hadn't expected that. Um, there was not a culture around teaching methods. I had great experiences, but it was a very different background
Mhm.
than what I experienced. Yeah.
Yeah, but the
Which has led to I should say that's how the evaluation work comes
yes,
along because faculty will be like, okay, how do I teach? And they said, well, maybe I'll write a grant about learning techniques for being a great biology teacher or a great math teacher. And that's where I come in. So,
great. You just mentioned brain compatible, right? And I'm really curious to know what that term means, because it sounds so interesting. So can you just elaborate on that?
oh, sure, sure. So, when I was studying in my master's program, it was like 1994, 90, I finished in 95. And that was a time when PET scans of the
Mhm.
brain as it was a newer technology. And so there was this sort of explosion around how does the brain work and what are ways that the brain can take in information. And so that was an exciting time for me to leave the business world and go into teaching because I felt like I had a lot of science created to teaching. So that's kind of where I got my start. So as we learn more and more about the brain and how the brain learns best, ways to think about anxiety and well-being and student engagement and all of these things over time has just continued to expand. So that's still like the foundation of my research. How all these years, as we learn more about the brain, student learning, student engagement, and then new technologies come in like AI, artificial intelligence, and things like that. What in what ways can we still think about how the brain uh, uses its critical thinking skills, or what grabs student attention, or what do we know about anxiety with certain skills like mathematics skills? How can we leverage what we know about the brain to make our teaching compatible with how the brain learns? So yeah, that's where I first learned that. But that's not something college faculty necessarily study. So
Okay.
that was my big aha moment. Like, wait a minute, we could do something here in higher ed. Yeah.
That's so great. And I somehow feel, honestly, that I'm sitting in a class and then it's one of those qualitative research classes. And I always felt that whatever you spoke, there was some learning. And see, now this is something another new concept I've learned, that is brain compatibility, right? Is it brain compatibility?
Yeah, brain compatible teaching and learning. Yeah.
Okay, brain compatible teaching and learning. Wonderful. I've made a note of
Yes.
it, right? Okay, but then
Oh, wonderful. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to hear that.
yeah, but then a question just crossed my mind since we have been discussing about program evaluation from the beginning. Uh, what is program evaluation and how is it different from assessment? And I'm sure this is going to help my listeners too.
Yeah. So there's some overlap.
Mm,
I think about it this way. Program evaluation is telling the story of what is happening in the program holistically. So let's say it's a new math class or the math class that I teach, quantitative literacy, they took the basic early college math class and added a financial component to
okay.
make it more brain compatible. We said, what is students are interested in money,
Mhm,
and how they spend and how they save and how they use credit cards. So those are all the things that are the same skills
mhm,
as early college math. So a brain compatible way, we thought we might try this course is to merge those things. So we could evaluate the program and how students are doing, how they like it, how engaged they are, what they feel they learn, to tell about the program of this quantitative literacy course. Assessment is often geared towards specific skills. So if I want to assess the skills that students are learning in this quantitative literacy course, I might look at, do they know how to do percentage change, like calculate sale price?
mm,
Or do they know how to, what else do we do? We do percentage change. We use the difference between decimals, percentages. We talk about measurement, ratios, and proportions. Um, those are skills that are things we want to measure. We want to assess.
okay.
So they are overlapping because in evaluation, I want to tell the story of the program, in
Mm,
this case, the course. Are students completing that required early college math course with confidence? Are they? But with that, we're also assessing the skills. We're
mhm,
assessing, do they stay enrolled?
mhm.
So yeah, but that's the difference. Assessment is tied to specific skills, learner outcomes,
Right.
and evaluation is to programmatic outcomes. But they do fit together.
Yeah, they do fit. Great.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, since you are a senior program evaluator and you have been evaluating for so many years, what are the finer tips you would like to give to young program evaluators so that they excel in their work?
Yes. So sometimes I meet new evaluators, emerging evaluators that are kind of going out on their own. And that can be hard because it can be solitary work, right? If you're, your own evaluation consultant on your own. So I encourage them to join different networks. So there's evaluation networks, there's the American Evaluation Association. It's good to have people around you that have been in the work for a while, as well as new people, emerging evaluators like you, to bounce ideas off of.
Mhm.
Ideally, I think when a person is an emerging evaluator, it's nice to perhaps work as part of a group or maybe a collaboration or a center with varying amounts of experience in that, right? I don't mean age, right? Because I came to evaluation work after, a little later, but being with people that had many years of experience
Yes,
helped me learn great skills.
right.
Yeah.
True.
So get joining out. The other thing I recommend to early evaluators is if you have an area that you're very interested in. Like for me, it's always been math and science.
Mm.
So when I first was becoming an evaluator, I tried to go to conferences in that were math conferences and biology conferences because those are my two favorite disciplines. And then I got to meet faculty that really care about those things that will be writing grant proposals where I could become a part of. So I got myself into two STEM disciplines where I've been able to generate work off of that. And if I hadn't done that, like I would apply to a math conference and say, apply to do a session about evaluation, a little 20-minute, half hour, whatever their shortest session was. And then I got in front of people and said, I love math and I love figuring out what students need to be successful in math or biology. And then they're like, oh, okay, so I need an evaluator and she's interested in the subject. So I recommend they do that too. Yeah.
Okay, that's really informative. And mm, as such, let me be very honest. Dr. LoRe, I have always admired you, how you bring
Oh,
new and unique elements into your classroom, making each session of yours so engaging and insightful. And I have to say, from what I have seen, your classes are never boring. You always find a
thank
way.
you.
Yeah, you always find a way to keep
Thank you.
everyone hooked. So I really want you to share with all of us, including my listeners, one or two powerful habits or practices that you rely on, or something that you have, something simple yet impactful that really makes a difference for your students. And it has made a difference in my life as a student. So please share
Oh,
with
thank
us.
you.
Yes.
Thank you. I really try, and this goes back to that brain compatible thing,
Oh.
right? So the idea would be that intelligence is a function of experience, right? So I try to make each class at an entry point where I can give them some kind of experience with whatever it is. So, like with my college math students, it can be kind of scary. And
Mhm.
I'm teaching the very first introduction to college math class. So I have students that couldn't didn't qualify for the next math that you could take as a freshman. So there's some anxiety and nervousness there. But I know that they care about money or probably care about money or think about money. So each time we meet, whatever I'm teaching, ratios, miles per gallon, stuff that can be scary, right? Uh, I like to have some sort of activity that's engaging for them. And I call it an exploration. So every class is an exploration. And I've kind of always done that. How can we have discovery and curiosity? Maybe it's hands on, maybe it's a hunting of I do a lot with AI with my classes now. So, in what ways can we leverage AI to be help us be researchers and gatherers of information? But then I need them to do the critical thinking part. One of my students said to me, "You're the only professor I've had that talks about AI." And I said, "Wait a minute. This was last spring." I thought to myself, how can we not talk about it? We have to talk about it. Like, we know students are using it and we're learning how to use it probably. So how can we not talk about it? So that's when I found the Rice University. I might be from their teaching and learning center. I'll have to look it up. But they had an article with those three icons and I thought, "Oh, I'm going to use that," right? Because and so I we talk about it, and we'll practice using AI. Like we do a practice budgeting. I give them a case study. Like, your person is named Tyler, and they live in, Memphis, Tennessee, and they're graduating with a degree in exercise science, right? So I ask them to tell me their majors, and I make up a pretend case study. And then, they're making $60,000 a year. Now, using the budgeting models that we've studied, use AI to help you find out about home and apartment costs, things like that. So we're practicing it in class together. And then we're practicing critical thinking skills without the AI. I'll say something like, "Okay, let's close your laptop, put your phone face down. How might you answer these reflection questions about your person that was your case study?" But when they leave the room, I know I want them to have permission to duplicate those things on their own assignments. So, but I think because I spend time in program evaluation, it didn't occur to me that people weren't talking. There's a benefit to being an adjunct faculty member, is that I'm somewhat removed from the college. I come in, I teach my classes, I feel free to experiment because I'm not part of a tenure and promotion track, right? I'm just there because I love teaching.
Yes.
And so I take chances and make mistakes in a way that maybe someone who is a full-time faculty might not feel free to. But I just assumed everybody was talking about AI.
Right. And I feel it is very important to use AI, understand what
Right.
AI is, and be responsible about what you're doing, right? The responsible use of AI is very, very important. Rather than saying
Right.
that, no, we should not use AI, how schools should not allow students to use AI. You cannot stop students from using AI. How do you stop?
Right. Can't stop it. So you might as well say, here's how I would use it. Like yesterday, the interest rates were lowered by a quarter of a percent in the US yesterday, right? Our inflation is very high.
Mm,
So, and there was a lot of pressure to lower interest rates, but it's maybe not the best time to do that. So to do a pacifying move, they lowered it by a quarter of a percent. So that was Wednesday. So in class yesterday, I said, "Okay, let's see what we were talking about: interest rates and credit cards and annual percentage rates." I said, "Okay, let's see, what can we find out? Is this going to change anything? Let's see what it does." Right. I said, use, because they have Gemini or Copilot as part of the school. I said, use one of our AR platforms and let's see what you can find out about it. There's a freedom and a relaxation I see in their faces,
mm,
particularly in math. And again, I have the lowest level math class at the college. And they're like, "Okay, Dr. LoRe says it's okay. Now let's talk about it." So we record our information, let's close our laptop, turn our phone over, and let's just talk about it. What do you think? Because AI can't critically think. It
yes.
can't think critically. It's just going to tell me what I want to hear, and it
Yes.
may or may not be accurate. So I think that discovery, exploration, hands on, experiential piece hooks the brain into the brain is a pattern seeking device.
Yeah.
So if we can create a pattern for by hooking onto something of interest,
Hmm.
that's what I try to do each time. So very interactive. My class is a little noisy at times, and then there's listening time.
Yes. Now, you've served on the dissertation committees of so many students, and we know that the doctoral journey, especially the defense, can be one of the most stressful parts of the PhD program. So, from your experience, how do you support students who are struggling emotionally?
I find that there are two times where the stress level tends to go up, right? It can happen at any point, but one is the defense, of course, like you mentioned, and the other is prior to that in the data collection phase,
Yes.
particularly if they have a qualitative component, sometimes it can be overwhelming trying to get participants. Like I was speaking with a student, I'm not actually on their committee, but we check in often, a former qualitative research student, and they're, you know, getting enough participants for qualitative data can be stressful because it's a commitment for people to make time to do an interview and do that.
Yeah.
And then you have all this data. Imagine you get it. How do you make sense of all that data?
Yeah.
And you had quantitative and you had truly mixed
Mixed.
methods,
Yes, I had mixed
and
method.
that is stressful. The way that I found to help students, well, the way that I try is I set a meeting schedule that is meaningful to them, with some ideas of what I need to help support them. So sometimes I work with a student, they're like, I'm just going to shoot you an email once a week and tell you where I'm at. And I say, great. And then we'll meet maybe bi-weekly, right? Until we get closer to the defense and we meet more frequently. But then I have other students that say, like, I'd really like to check in once a week. And I'm like, great, let's do a 20 to 30-minute Zoom. So having connections on a schedule that works for them. Now, I do sometimes insert myself if I haven't seen a student for a while, um, uh, and we haven't checked in on the schedule we said we would. I do. I do sometimes insert. I do have to insert myself and say, "Hey, I didn't get your check-in email. Are you finished with chapter 3?" Some of my students now are doing 3 separate articles. Some are doing 5 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to let them set the pace because then I don't want meeting with me to be stressful.
Right.
But I also need to feel like they're moving along, and support them well. Sometimes when things aren't going well, people won't say anything. And so
Right.
they want to hide, right? So I say, how is it going? Um, so connections is one way I think helps with the stress. If
Right.
they're struggling emotionally,
Mm.
being able to have somebody that's your touch point that tells you that it's going to be okay and to help you make an action plan is really important. So we're not getting the data we want. What can we do? And how do we talk about that? Can we do a snowball sampling where the 2 people you did talk to can, you know, bring someone else on board? Um, and then at the defense time, that's a stressful time too, because for the most part you feel exhausted,
Yeah.
right? You've written all these things and you've collected all this data and you've analyzed it and you've written about it, and so sometimes you're just like, oh, I cannot muster any more energy.
Right.
And so I do try to frame it as a celebration of learning. Like, you are the expert in what you just did. Nobody knows that better than you do. It is your dissertation, you own it. So let's celebrate that learning by sharing it with others. And this is the dissertations when you kind of let your hair down.
Yeah.
You can make your argument and then you can leave the audience with an action. So it's a I find I have to pump everybody up a bit then because we're all tired.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
if you frame it as fun, it can be less scary.
Yes.
And I would never put a student up unless I thought they were ready. Like, if I don't think that they're ready, if I have an inkling that they're not ready, I would suggest a later date. That's never happened to me before, but I would do that if I needed to.
Now, and the last question, this segment is that given your vast experience in program evaluation, I would love to hear your thoughts on the future of this field. And looking ahead, what's one innovation you would like to see in how higher education uses research and evaluation?
Oh, okay. I'm so glad you asked about this because I've been thinking about this a lot. So, um, this is a challenging time in the United States, politically. but also around being able to share our ideas. So, um, in the spring, um, the short answer to your question is I think there will always be a place for program evaluation, always,
Mhm.
no matter where we are, because people always want to know how projects are going and how they're doing. Where I have felt censored in 2025 is in the languages that I can use to describe that. And this is in the United States. So, um, I love science, I love math. A lot of the projects I work with are specifically looking to support different populations of people that have um, specific demographic categories, right? I'm in rural Appalachia, I'm in East Tennessee. Talking about the demographics of people is we don't have the freedoms to do that in the United States in the way we have in the past. So some of my projects have been canceled.
Oh,
um, so I lost a project with St. Jude that was called Racial Equity in STEM. It was a National Science Foundation line, so that one was canceled. I have a couple of projects with Hispanic serving institutions that were canceled. And so, um, because I live in that vein of science and health science, those are things that are have lost some funding. I
sorry.
had a, oh no, it's okay. I had a Department of Education grant that was canceled to develop school counselors in high schools. Um, so because our Department of Education has lost a lot of funding, and it's just been a difficult time. Now, that being said, evaluation is still needed. People still need to be able to know if their programs are working. I work with a list of censored words that I have to infuse into my reporting in a way I've never had to use in all my years. So that's been tricky, like um, feeling very censored
Yeah.
in what I can and cannot say. There's much more of a focus in the United States in evaluation in terms of return on investment. Are these programs that are left, are you using the money in a way that, which we have always reported, the use of money, but putting more of a business spin on it. So that's been helpful with my business background to use words like return on investment or SWOT analysis or like
Mhm.
businessy words. But there will always be a space for evaluation. For emerging evaluators, like looking ahead, I would caution them to um, be very tuned into what words you're using. Unfortunately,
Mm.
like I don't want any more of my projects to be lost, because when I lose projects, that affects students, right? I don't want students to lose scholarship, like the students that I had that were for the project for developing mental health school counselors, right? Which we need desperately,
Yeah.
desperately.
True.
The way in which, but that funding was cut. And so all of those student school counselors that we had um, lost their funding. And so do you want to be in a graduate school to be a school counselor without financial support for tuition? Probably no.
Mm.
So some things happening right now feel very random and contrary to common sense. So being in program evaluation means watching your language. As angry as I am, I don't want to say the wrong thing because I don't want students to lose funding. So
Yeah.
I find myself with this extra load where I'm going through everything I say with a fine tooth comb. Did I use the word, like, I can't use the word culturally responsive evaluation anymore. So did I accidentally use the word culture? Did I accidentally say the word women in engineering? I can't say women. I have to say people. So there's an extra bandwidth on me to carefully look at all my evaluation reports and be careful with what I say. I have been doing a lot with AI to help me make sure that the language I'm using is acceptable. And there's a lot of discussion amongst evaluators. Some of it is, well, you shouldn't have to give in. You should be able to say what you want to say. And I agree. At the same time, I don't want any of my programs to lose funding.
Yeah.
And worries me. So if I cannot say women in STEM, but I could make the change and say people in STEM, I will say that. Or if I can't say culturally responsive evaluation, but I can say principles focused evaluation. And I do feel like guilty sometimes, like and angry sometimes, but I want my students to keep their funding. Yeah.
That's so important. And apart from funding, I think that motivation, right, to work in
Yes.
a project, so they get demoralized if they lose funding, and more than that, if they lose an opportunity to work on a project.
I find, where I've been living in this since the spring, it's just out getting into the general public now because celebrities are losing their shows, right? Their television programs. And so to the greater population, they are just getting to the idea of censorship. But for me, the censorship started in late February when I lost my first grant. So, and then I had to look at all of them. So I don't think evaluation will ever go away, but I do think we need to be adaptable to what is it? We need to be adaptable. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And leverage tools like AI to make sure to be my double check. AI is my double check.
Out of curiosity, I just want to ask you one question, a quick question,
Sure.
right? I understand.
Sure.
I understand that you are involved in nearly 20 grant and foundation funded projects across
Yes.
the US, while also teaching as an adjunct professor. On top of that,
Yes.
you make time for family and long walks in the mountains, right? How do you balance time, and what does a typical week on your calendar look like?
Oh my. Okay. So that's a great question. So a typical calendar for me, Tuesday, Thursday, I'm teaching during the day on campus. 2 of those quantitative literacy early math classes. I take those evenings to check in with my New York class that's practice teaching. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I devote entirely to my program evaluation work. And then I often work on a Saturday or a Sunday. I do love to like relax in the evening, like crochet, watch TV. I don't watch very much television, I guess. And then I love being outside. So I do try to get outside a little bit every day, even if it's just for 15 or 20 minutes.
Wow.
You know how beautiful it is here.
Oh, it is beautiful. So are you in Knoxville or in Maryville? Where exactly are you?
I'm in Maryville, so I'm a little bit closer to the mountains, like maybe a half hour closer. So we have a lovely green belt, they call it. It's an 11-mile, I don't walk all 11 miles, but it's an 11-mile walking trail.
Wow.
So I will walk on drive and walk on a portion of it. It's about 5-10 minutes from my house. And then, so my husband and I like to go for an early walk in the morning. And then I come back and work, or I go teach. So, yeah.
Wow. So
I cannot not teach. Like, I feel like I have to. Teaching for me is my, like where I find my most joy, right? So I've thought about not adjuncting or cutting back, and I can't. So.
Great. So thank you, Dr. LoRe. Those were such thoughtful reflections with diverse experiences. So now it's time to shift gears a little. So let's move into something lighter and fun. So this segment is called Chit Chat Rapid Fire. So there are only 10 quick questions and 10 answers. So shall I begin with it?
Sure.
Okay. The most memorable dissertation defense moment you've witnessed.
Oh my goodness. I think it was yours.
Oh, really? And what makes
Yes,
it memorable?
you were serious and enthusiastic at the same time. Like you were excited, but
Mm-hmm.
you were also careful and like said exactly. And so yours was the one that I think of first and the most because that's how I want everyone to present. Like this is serious, important work, but I am also so excited.
I'm so happy to know that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Didn't you feel you were feeling these things though in the moment, right? You were
Okay.
feeling this is important. Please
Absolutely.
listen. But I
Absolutely.
am so excited about what I just did.
Yes, I was excited. And
Yes, yes,
I was excited and I was prepared. Right?
yes. You were well prepared. Yes.
Yeah, right.
I
Okay.
had no doubt at all.
You're too sweet. Okay. The second question. One evaluation tool you swear by.
I would say the Excel. Excel.
Okay.
Yeah, I do a lot in Excel. Yeah. Um, I visualize most of my data in Excel. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
And
Third question.
Microsoft Excel is available. Like Microsoft Excel is, yeah,
Yeah, it is good. And I too use it a lot.
yeah, yeah.
And off late for data visualization, I think I did mention in one of your LinkedIn, I think, post, I use napkin.ai. So,
Oh, yes,
oh, that
yes.
did you get a chance to use napkin.ai?
I hadn't heard of it until you mentioned it. Yes, I have. It's
Oh,
very cool.
yeah, it's cool. And you can just try because I think they allow you to work for a few, I think a few pages or something of that sort. So whenever I use napkin.ai, I could use it always. I mean, I did not subscribe. I haven't paid, but it's really good for data visualization.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't heard of it, but I have tried it since you
Yeah,
shared it, and it is
right.
excellent.
Okay, third question. If you had to choose between classroom teaching and program evaluation, which would you prefer?
Oh my. I think I would choose program evaluation just because of my age now. I don't know that I have the stamina for
Yeah,
classroom teaching.
right. Your secret
Not because I don't love it, but I want to do both. But if I had to choose, I would choose program
was
evaluation
program evaluation.
for stamina reasons. I don't
Right,
have the stamina I did as a younger person.
right.
I
And
would need an evening nap every day.
that's
You
so
know, I need
important.
a little afternoon nap, right?
I understand. And that's so important, right? That's so relaxing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the fourth question, your secret to surviving back-to-back classes.
Ooh, I this is gonna sound silly, but my secret now is that I roll everything. So I have the two back-to-back math classes, which I had to do to fit my work in. There's
Mhm.
15 minutes between them, and I roll all my supplies in a rolly bag.
Okay.
So my
Good.
secret is
Secret.
roll it,
Roll
roll
it.
it. Don't carry it.
Great. Great. Okay. Which skill is harder to teach, more difficult to teach, writing or critical thinking?
Ooh, I think critical thinking. I
Yeah.
think critical thinking
Mhm.
because we have AI can do some beautiful writing for you,
Mm,
but critical thinking is a skill that we always need to polish, always at every age,
absolutely.
right?
What a wonderful answer. Skill. True. Okay. You said you're fond of crocheting, right? Your favorite crochet
Yes.
project so far?
Ooh, well, my favorite is one that my daughter made for me. She made me a granny square sweater.
Wow.
The favorite she's made me two. They're not nearby, otherwise I grab them. The favorite one that I've made is I just learned to make a basket.
Okay.
And I made my sister a basket. And that was my favorite.
Beautiful. Okay. Mountains in the morning or in the evening? When do you enjoy them more? I think you just said morning.
Um, I think mornings, yeah. I think mornings. I like to go as it's just getting bright out.
Right.
Yeah.
And if
Because
you,
then my stamina runs out. I run out of energy.
right. And I think morning also, like you feel fresh.
Yes, yes. And I concentrate better. Like if I do
Yes.
my exercise in the morning, then I'm ready to sit at my computer.
True.
Yeah.
And if you could invite one famous researcher,
Oh
past or
my.
present, to your class as a guest, who would it be?
So I would love to invite the person that I learned about brain compatible teaching and learning to my class. Her name is Susan Kovalik, Kovilk. Um, yeah, Dr. Susan Kovalik, because no matter what I was teaching, she would be able to speak to learning. And I love her. And I think I've met her one time and I would love to. I've met her a couple of times, but that's who I would like to invite. Yeah, Susan Kowalik. Yeah, yeah.
Great. And what's one life lesson teaching has taught you that you use outside of work?
Oh boy, um, that we are all doing the very best we know. Like I have never met a student that isn't doing the best that they know how to do.
Mm,
If they're doing something inappropriate,
mm,
it's likely because they don't know that it isn't acceptable or appropriate.
mm,
Won't believe that people intend
mhm.
to not do their best. So, and I know I'm probably wrong about that, but I hold that mindset that this person is doing the best that they know to do, right? Like when I mentioned going to my PhD program in my 40s after teaching and sitting in a classroom and watching a professor and being like, gee, I wonder why their back is to me and they're not looking at, and I thought, oh, well, they're doing the best that they know to do. They've never studied teaching.
Right.
Try to hold on to that. And then when someone asks, we ask awful in the grocery store, I say, they're doing the best that they know.
True, true, absolutely true. True. Okay. Now, what's one book, fiction or nonfiction, that you've
Oh, goodness.
recently read before bed and truly enjoyed?
Oh, my goodness. So I am reading, okay, well, my favorite book, and I read it from time to time. It's actually a young adult book. It's called The Ethan I Was Before.
Oh,
And there's a line in the book that says, hope is like sand in a beach bag. You can never really get it out. And when I'm feeling stressed or down, I will re-pick up that book because um, that line of, hope is like sand in a beach bag. You can never really get it out
mm,
is how I'm needing to feel right now with how things are going with my country
mhm.
and with education in my country. So I just picked up that book a few nights ago and said, I'm going to read this again because I want to have hope that
Mhm.
can't be shaken out of my beach bag.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And the last question, even though this is the 11th question, but I,
That's okay.
I mean, I want to ask you, so if you had to sum up your teaching philosophy in only 3 words, what would they be?
Um, I would say discovery,
Mm-hmm.
exploration,
Mm-hmm.
reflection.
Wow,
That would
beautiful.
be, yeah.
Beautiful. So, with this, we come to the end of the second segment of the rapid fire round, and that was fun and insightful. And you know what? I love how this rapid fire round brings out the candid side of every guest. So, to wrap up our conversation, let's close with a deeper and a more reflective segment and the last segment of the podcast that I would like to call My Teaching Mirror. you have spent 3 decades in the academic landscape, right? So if you had to capture that entire journey of an educator or a program evaluator in a single metaphor, which could be anything from research or music or any object that comes to your mind, and you're able to associate it with your journey, what would it be and why?
Yeah. I have a picture. I took it in Puerto Rico, and it's there's a STEM education program that I evaluate there. So I was at the beach and I came across this piece of, I think, volcanic rock. And
Oh,
in it were about 15 snails. And each snail had a different color and a
mhm.
different pattern. And the pattern
Wow.
was so distinct, it looked as if someone had drawn it on there with a Sharpie marker. Some were zigzag, some were kind of straightish lines, and they were all clumped together. And when I saw that, I thought that is exactly what I think of when I think about, you know, kind of where I am in my life, but where I was, when I was teaching, because our brain is a pattern seeking device. So I could see all those snails together and I could see that they were all snail shells, but each one was a little bit different. The pattern on the shell was a little different. The color on the shell was a little different. But yes, they were all clumped together in a collaborative. And that's how I think about teaching. It's like we have this group of students, they're all doing the best that they know,
Yeah.
but they're all different. They're similar in the sense they're all human beings and
Mm.
they're all clumped together in my class. And that's whether I'm teaching little ones or big ones like I am now, right? Big kids, 18, 19-year-olds that I have now, they're like that too, just like my youngers. But it's also the same if you think about an education program. You often have people from, maybe they say we're going to bring these biology and math people together and they're going to write open education curriculum and they're going to reach their students by infusing math into biology. So it's more, brain compatible. And I say, okay, I'm going to evaluate that. But each person's unique. They have their own characteristics, their own patterns and colors, but we still know that they're human beings. So that picture lives in my office. That's like my metaphor.
So, Dr. LoRe, thank you so much for joining us today and your journey from classroom teaching to program evaluation, from being a school principal to mentoring PhD students, and I was one of them. It's truly inspiring. So, for all our listeners, I hope today's conversation gave you both wisdom and encouragement, whether you're an educator, a student, or someone simply curious about the power of teaching and learning. So I'm your host, Indrani, signing off from the Teacher's Lounge. Until next time, keep learning, keep sharing this podcast, and remember, the best classrooms are the ones where curiosity never ends. Thank you and goodbye.